Good day, everybody. I'm Mike, and I will be taking you through the EMS portion of this webinar. We'll be going through everything from the actual physical hardware, where it works on site, the problems that we are solving, and then I'll take you through a demonstration at the end of it of what the system can provide. Okay, so let's jump in. So the EMS system, or energy management system, is exactly as the word says. It manages the energy production and consumption on a site. So it is plugged into the Freedom Won containerized solutions, or the MPS systems, or the HPS systems, and brings all of the information from those devices into a single source and onto the cloud, where we can now monitor everything remotely. The idea behind it is that it doesn't just monitor things, it also does the control aspect of it as well. So alongside the HPS systems, or your entire energy production system, we're also monitoring the generators, we're monitoring different power meters on site. We are also monitoring, obviously, the physical inverters and the batteries on site, to then optimize and control each of them to get the most out of the system. The key benefit to the EMS is that it can increase production of the solar, it can increase the longevity of your batteries, it can bring in a whole bunch of different control algorithms that help you optimize the power that you are generating and are bringing through to the system, which really just helps you get your ROI on your investment quicker, and obviously keeps you informed of what's happening on site, so that you can get a longer lasting product and a more consistent energy production in the future. Cool. So with that, we can talk about a little couple extra things as well. So we also do the control in terms of when to use energy from your main supplier, when to use the generator, when to use solar. You can choose on your system as to how you want to use that energy. Do you want to optimize for using as much solar as possible? Do you want to use an energy arbitrage type of situation, where you're buying power when it's cheap and using the battery backup when it's obviously expensive? And we can do all of that kind of stuff in the EMS as well. All right. The last part that's really nice is that it actually integrates with the Freedom Won batteries as well, to obviously keep them balanced, make sure that they are charging correctly, make sure they're discharging correctly, and obviously keeping their temperatures at right, to make sure that you obviously get notified as well if there's anything out of the ordinary in terms of the batteries, or in terms of the inverters or generators, or whatever machinery is plugged into the site. We can do notifications and alerts on that as well. All right. So I think with that, we can jump into a bit of a video demonstration on the system. The main idea is that you plug in the EMS panel itself. There's two different versions of it. I can talk about the versions. There is the EMS standard version, which takes up to 5 devices and does the basic control of your hybrid inverter, your generator controller, and your grid-tie solar system. And then we have the Pro version, which does up to 12 devices on site. And when I say devices, I mean a hybrid inverter, a grid-tie solar system, a generator, a power meter, something along those lines. And we can monitor then and control up to 12 different devices on site. And that's everywhere from multiple hybrid inverters or paralleled hybrid inverter systems, to multiple grid-tie inverter systems, to multiple grid syncing generator systems, and controlling all of those together to make sure that we're producing power as cost effectively as possible and for as long as possible. Right, so the main idea behind the EMS is also about ease of setup on site. Right, so it's one thing plugging everything in and then spending weeks on site programming and setting up everything. We, as the EMS team, have pre-integrated most of the devices that are available in the field at the moment, or most of your hybrid inverter systems, grid-tie generator systems, or grid-tie solar systems. That it's as simple as installing the communications to these devices and selecting on the EMS platform as to what devices are being monitored. The EMS system then has all of the registers mapped, and all of those controllers configured online already, that it can automatically start bringing through the information online. And obviously, when the controller is set up, it'll automatically know which devices to control and deal with on that side. All right. With obviously the inherentness of cloud monitoring now, we have all of that information available through the Freedom Won EMS web portal, and obviously through the EMS app as well. So what's really nice about that is that we have a system now that you can monitor from anywhere in the world, that you always have access to it, and that you can get the data you need. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just take us through a specific dashboard or an example of an EMS solution that's now on the cloud. To get to this point, we've obviously installed our system on the site. We've connected it or configured it onto the cloud platform side. And we've added in all the devices. What we call devices is obviously our power meters, our grid tie inverters, our hybrid inverters, those kind of things are called devices on our system. And what will end up happening is that you'll land on a page that looks something like this, and you'll have access to your dashboards, your devices, your reports, gateways, and your site groups and that kind of stuff. All right. So with the system, we can control all the user access, the user roles. That's all done through the users tab. We can control what users can see and what sites they can see through the device grouping. And what's really nice about this is that we always have the appropriate access for the appropriate user. So there's always security. Obviously, security is a major focus point of the system. Because we have so much control on the site, we need to obviously make sure that it is as secure as possible. So we ultimately give our clients the ability to configure that security and make sure that the right users are able to do the right things on the site. So you'll manage all of that via your users and device groups. The next section is the gateways, which is obviously your EMS system itself. In every EMS panel is a gateway that physically brings the data online. And attached to those gateways is all the devices, which is in this section over here. What we can do is we can jump into a physical device here, and I can show you a quick demo of what this looks like. So this is now one of our sites that we have set up already, and we've got a whole bunch of different devices here on this list, and we'll see that we've set this up as the EM or Monday branch. Okay, starting from the top here, we've got our generators, we've got our MPS inverters, we've got its DC MPPT modules, we've got a mains power meter on the site, we've got a load power meter on the site, we've got a grid tie solar system on the site, which means that we've now put a grid tie power meter down. And then we have our EMS engine, which actually does the control of all of the systems on the site as well. All right. So adding a device is as simple as clicking the link device, and this will allow you to now add devices to the system. What's really nice is that you'll just select your gateway, and from there you'll be able to select your inverter or your type of inverter out of the list. And from the Freedom Won EMS side, we have pre-configured all of the devices to the cloud. So you'll just simply select whatever it is that you're trying to monitor, tell us what ID it's on, and give it a name, link the device, and it'll appear in the list here and start, and the system will start monitoring that already. Okay, cool. So once we've got a device, what it ends up looking like, I'll just for interest's sake show you what an MPS looks like, and we'll go to that device's specific dashboard, and that'll load for us, and it'll bring through some live information about the MPS on the site. And we can see this is currently a running site, so we've got some nice information coming through. And the beauty of the system is that everything that's available on the actual device on the site is now available in the cloud. All right. So we can see the live readings here. If I refresh the page, we get a new live reading. And with that, obviously, we have all of the registers or all of the readings that we wanted to get through. And this is also, again, completely configurable for the user as well. All right. Next on this, we've got a specific device history page. This is now a bit of a deeper dive into the system, so we can drill down into the information. So we can start seeing the battery information here. We can see some power information here. And a lot of the time, yes, graphs are a bit confusing, but once you've looked through it, you'll realize that this is obviously quite a lot of nice information to get. And with this, you can make powerful decisions and obviously make the right decisions to managing your site. Okay. The last one that's really cool to talk about here is the alerting functionality. So we can set up alerts on the system as well. And those alerts can be on any threshold or on fault statuses or whatever it is that that you're wanting to get out of the site, whether that be like a battery low state or a inverter in fault state or a maximum demand exceeded state. You can set up all those alerts that you're wanting to get. The system currently supports push notifications through the phone app and email alert functionality. All right. So with the history page, you can obviously also choose a date range picker. You can choose whatever kind of range you want to look at if you wanted to build reports or see information over a duration. And you'll see this will go and fetch all that information and show us now over the last week what's been happening on the inverter on site. Okay, so that's really nice and powerful. And that obviously is the same thing for every device that we deal with on our side. So if we even go into like another device here, here's a load power meter, and you'll see that this is now bringing all the information from the load power meter side, and we can see all the basic information that we need from that. Again, historical information is here as well, and if I wanted to see a whole bunch of info over time, I can start doing that. Okay, so here we can see again over the last week what's been happening with the inverter. Here's all our power productions, and if I want to see this maybe per day, I can actually choose that and average that per day, and I can see all of my information and even download this via CSV if I wanted to. There's an opportunity here on the right hand side to download that via CSV, and that'll bring through my total consumptions now, and I can open this in Excel and play around with that information and see what's going on per day here. So here's all of my totals, and I can see in the last week, and I can do a sum, and I can say, cool, I've got about 3,000 kilowatt hours for the week. All right. Okay, so what I've shown you now is obviously per device. What's nice about it is that if you want to drill into the information, you can, and it's really a nice starting point to just show you per device what's going on. But then we do also have what we call our custom dashboarding feature, and this is really where the EMS steps into its own, is that you can start building dashboards for your site based on what you want it to see. Okay, so this, for interest's sake, is just the energy flow. It's where I've landed. But we can see obviously where all these meters are. So now I've got all these devices that are added to the same screen, and I can see where my energy is now flowing. I can see I'm using power from the mains. I see I'm charging the batteries, and I've got my two inverter, one grid tie inverter and one internal DC solar charging. And I can see that obviously that's not enough power for the load, which is why we're pulling power from the mains. On this site specifically, we can see it's actually cloudy. There's a bit of a weather API here that we can see that information as well. Okay, but what's nice about this is that we can build this as excessive as we want it to be. So I can now, for interest's sake, build a whole dashboard that looks something like this. And you can see this is the original site that I was showing you all the devices from. And we can see like here, it'll start connecting to the device. And as it connects, it'll start displaying the information. And what's nice about this energy flow is that it is a live stream from the site itself. Okay, so the information coming through here will update on a second by second basis, and you can see all these values changing as obviously the readings are changing on the site. Okay, we've got a bit of an extra mile here as well with adding a bunch of different information like our load shedding schedules, and we're also adding our generators in here, and we've got a bit of a consumption density, our watts per square meter. And because we're monitoring all these different devices in the field, we can obviously bring all that information through to the same platform. So that's really what separates the system from the others, is that the holistic approach to monitoring. Okay. So here we can see some basic graphs. And again, this is all customizable. You can choose what you want to do here. You can set up your own dashboards, your own look and feels. You can put your logos in here if you wanted to. You can do whatever you wanted to on this custom dashboard itself. Okay, so this is just how we set it up on our side. And this is just a cool little example of what's going on. I can then go to my second tab. Again, this is all customizable, but we've built a second tab called production and consumption. So here we can get a bit more information on what's happening with the PV production, what's happening with the load consumption. And we can actually see, here's a little pie chart here showing me how much of the site is running off PV and how much is actually running off my mains energy meter here as well. Okay, so you can see we've got about a 94% PV usage on the site, which means we're getting quite close to a net neutral power consumption on this facility. All right, so that's really powerful. The last tab I'm going to show you through here is where we've now gotten deep into the Freedom Won battery side of things is that we are monitoring the batteries quite extensively as well. And as I mentioned, we start making sure that the batteries are balancing and that they're optimized to hold as much power as possible. So on the right-hand side here, we can see some cell balancing situation. We can see that the cells are physically balanced. We can set up notifications to say that obviously if the cells aren't balanced. And what does generally happen with your bigger installations is that cells do drift over time. They do obviously change their minimum and maximum cell voltages, can drift over time. So what's really nice is that the system's physically watching those cells, and when it gets to a stage that there's an imbalance, it'll then force a balancing cycle, obviously without compromising the power production on site. It'll force a balancing cycle and make sure that those batteries then do ultimately do a balance and get to a state where they are at optimal performance again. Okay, so here we can just see some battery information, our state of charges, the battery power, battery voltages, and current readings. And we can see that cool, this battery is now balanced and doing what it needs to do. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much that side of it. Most of the control side is done from our side, right? So you guys will set up the site, you'll get everything reading on site, and from there, the Freedom Won team will take over and actually set up, based on your requirements, what the site needs to be doing in terms of energy flow, in terms of energy consumption. So if you're wanting to do energy arbitrage, we will set that up for you based on the timelines that you want. We'll send you a configuration document, if you will, that you guys can fill in, and we'll then set up, test with you guys, make sure that everything's working according to your specifications, just to give that next level of support. Okay guys, so I've got another site for you here that's a little bit more complicated in how it's functioning. So on this site now, we've got generators, we've got mains meters, we've got obviously our battery, our hybrid inverter system. We've also got DC internal MPPTs, and we've got grid type PV systems. So obviously this Freedom Won EMS system will control all of that at the same time. So as obviously the load changes, we will adjust the PV system to obviously produce more power, produce less. If you want to push back, we can optimize the push back, but generally speaking, we don't do that. So in this case now, we'll obviously just ramp down the PV to make sure we never push back to the grid. But what I do want to show you on this graph here is that the EMS Pro panels come with temperature monitoring included in the panel as well. So yes, most of the devices do ambient monitoring or do internal temperature monitoring, but for the batteries specifically, you want to obviously keep them at a consistent temperature. So what we do on our side is that we include temperature probes in the EMS Pro panel, and we can now see temperatures of the environments that the batteries and the equipment are in. With this, obviously, we can set up alerts based on that as well, just to make sure that obviously the batteries are kept at a consistent temperature, and at least you know that then the cooling system or the environmental temperature system on the site is obviously up to standard and keeping up with the demands of the day-to-day. So that's pretty much that. You'll see otherwise it's a very similar graph here, but what I do want to go into here is more on the site control side. So we've added some additional controls onto this site. That we can actually change the generator. We can start and stop the generator manually if we wanted to, obviously online. We can actually automate that site control. Right now that automation is not on. And we can obviously change the set target SOC, so the state of charge. And we can actually adjust in the system and tell it, listen, I'm happy to run the battery at 50% now, and we will then start using the battery more and using the grid less to obviously make sure that the battery gets down to 50%. But the idea behind that is that you can adjust your SOC at any point during the operation if you want to use more battery or use less battery, depending on what's going on. Okay. With this now as well, we can change when the generator start and stop commands happening here as well. And with the MPSs, we're looking at doing a soft loading feature where the generator will start up even though the mains has failed, and it'll start charging the battery and not actually get choked out by the site's load. So that's going to be quite a powerful feature here, is that we can actually then charge the battery and run a bit of the site load specifically off the generator in a situation where you've had prolonged mains outages, and you need to obviously get the generator back. Get the battery back up to charge, because the site is not actually getting power from mains anymore, and there's not enough solar to produce. So that's pretty much that. I think that's the last of what I need to show you guys. With the system, it is infinitely powerful. It is infinitely customizable. There's so much that you can do on the system, and it really is the next generation in site control and energy production and energy management. And with it, we're going to take over the world and make sure that everything's running as efficiently and as optimally as possible. Cool. Thank you for your time.